What is going on with Manchester United's former players? How have players from teams famous for circling the wagons and protecting the team at all costs gone from that to posting "I told you so's" on social media? And why do other legends with a less deeply rooted connection to the club seemingly know how to act right? It really should be the case that the only thing we're talking about at Manchester United right now is Carrick's first 8 games in charge, 6 wins, 1 draw, 1 loss. Who's going to be potentially our next manager? But instead of all the noise around our football club, look, it's United, man. There always is noise. And this video is not going to be just me like ranting and raving and disagreeing with what I heard from Scholes or agreeing with what I heard from Evra. It's more just an overview of how confusing it is to get these almost like polarizing perspectives on how to speak about Manchester United. And I want you to let me know what you're thinking. That, like, what is the driving reason behind all of it? All right, Carrick is the latest manager at United that's going to have to deal with this. Ruben Amorim couldn't deal with it. It was a big problem. But the reason I'm saying this now is it's a follow-on from the Button Scholes situation, and it's Evra sort of snapping back. If you haven't seen what Evra said, he had an interview with Stake, and he was just speaking about former pundits. He was asked about the Paul Scholes Instagram post, right? He's down here, look, saying, I really don't understand the lack of support behind Carrick. He's one of us. He's been doing really well. This is what you do when you work in TV. You can't be positive. You have to be negative. Well, it's just, that sentence right there is the bloody truth. Also, that sentence down there, it's quite funny actually what he said about the Piler and fish and chips. But also, United need to win their next game so they don't let that noise get to them from the outside and from ex-players. And I always go back to this. And I think this is why it sticks in the throat for United fans. Not that we're just comparing to the Fergie era and saying, oh, back in our day. I mean, it was back in our day. We were better. But that picture there, Beckham and Fergie in 99, Fergie closed the doors and didn't let the noise get to Beckham when he was having bloody effigies of him hung and burned outside pubs after the World Cup in 98. And he went on to, should have won the Ballon d'Or that year and he won the treble. That happened because Fergie closed the doors. And again, it's just interesting seeing the contrasting approaches from different players of different eras and how they're speaking about United. Andy Mitten spoke to Vidic and also to Andy Cole for the latest piece in The Athletic. And Vidic's point of view, look, let Michael, and his players try and reach it. Don't put pressure on him. Let's enjoy it for now. Andy Cole. This is what Andy Cole had to say. I'm not saying he's perfect. I'm not saying every game has been perfect, but it's about winning. And that's what United have done under him. And he just sort of calmly speaks about United and where we are right now. And that's kind of Andy Cole's perspective. Do you think part of this is simply sort of the exposure that we get to certain voices? Like if we heard Vidic speaking every single week about Manchester United, there's probably more chance that you would hear him criticise the club. And there's nothing wrong with criticism, by the way. Criticism should exist. But there very much is a difference between criticism and you can call it sort of like school ground level sarcasm, basically bullying. I think that's partly to do with it. But like, I'm not saying this is a United exclusive problem. Okay, I'm sure clubs all around in the top 6, they have former players speaking about it. But the scale of it at United, if we're not talking about Butt or not talking about Scholes, we're talking about Gary Neville. And his voice carries so much power in the modern football industry. And you can speak about Roy Keane as well, who feels like I'm not going to say he feels like a caricature of himself, but he knows his character on TV. I suppose you can't really say that without saying it's a caricature. He knows how to speak as a pundit. But then you got like Jamie Carragher and you got Liverpool. This is kind of what I mean about it. I'm not saying it's a United exclusive problem, but there's just so many former United players who have that prominence as a pundit now. Jamie Carragher, I'm not sure how much he's been criticising. I'm sure he has been criticising Arne Slot. Micah Richards, it's about all that City have. Ian Wright and Arsenal. Or Ian Wright's a class pundit. And I just look at what United have to deal with. And I think the thing that permanently annoys me is I really do feel that quite a few of these players don't actually understand, or they're not aware how much power their voices have, or maybe they do. And that It kind of comes down to that relevancy and sort of attention and economy that we now live in. It's part and parcel of my job here at United People's TV, what we do, the content that we put out. I've tried my utter best to avoid going down the Brent path, not really caring what I say as long as somebody watches it. That's all that matters. That's all that matters to him. That's all that matters maybe to a few of these pundits, because so many of them speak. And I'm thinking, how does that help Manchester United? And there's a difference between constructive criticism and sort of low ball, almost like jabs to the side, which is a lot of what I see from Scholes and Butt. I would say that Gary Neville's analysis is a little bit deeper, but it feels like we're talking about this every week again. And it only took... Well, actually, no, it didn't. The Butt and Scholes situation happened before the Manchester derby, which was Carrick's first game in charge. So that was straight off the back of the Amram situation. But then it only took one loss from Carrick under Newcastle for all this to sort of re-emerge and to come out. Like, there's always like a civil war ready to erupt as soon as United lose a game of football. And I think that kind of comes down to another part of the problem, which is like the extreme reactions that seem to exist across Manchester United these days. It's like if you win 5 in a row, then Michael Carrick is God's gift to management and he's going to have to get the job full time. And then he loses one game and all of a sudden, oh, this is a problem, that is a problem. There are problems in the team. We've all seen problems in the team. Like Andy Cole said over here. It's not perfect. It hasn't been perfect. But United have been winning. United have been getting the results. And it's just, until these sorts of distractions get back to the level that we did have under Fergie. And maybe it's not possible in the modern game. Oh, voice just went there. Maybe it is not possible in the modern game because of social media, because of the exposure that you do get to it. As I said, even if you wanted to, as a United player, to avoid all this sort of stuff, it's probably going to be a mate that sends you it on WhatsApp. I just find it curious, if I'm being honest. Like, what is the reason why a former United player would sort of twist the knife rather than... It has to do with the relevancy. It has to do with the attention that you get. Because if you're positive about United, it's not just being positive about United. If you just don't twist the knife in, like, you expect it from Jamie Carragher, you expect it from Micah Richards, you probably even expect it maybe from Ian Wright. But it comes more from former United players. And is that just to do with the fact that there's more of them as pundits? I find it infuriating that a lot of the ammunition that's given against our club actually does come from the voices of some of our best ever players. And it feels like, I'm not saying it's exclusive to Manchester United, but it's a far bigger problem for us than it is other clubs.